Clark, Atlanta, I want to first thank you. I was just telling a young man who introduced me, I'm not often caught at a loss, but I really appreciate that. My name is Attorney Gerald Griggs, and I have the honor of being the 13th president of the Georgia State Conference of the NAACP. But more importantly, I'm a son of Georgia, sixth generation Georgian, born out of this red clay. And when I was driving down here thinking about what I was going to say to you on this Black History Month, I could only think of one person to remind you of. Because the purpose of Black history is to remind us where we're coming from so we can get to where we're going. And so I want to remind you of a young man who graduated from Atlanta University in 1916. I want to tell you a little story that happened in his life on September the 22nd, 1906. And I want to ground us in some history. Now again, I told you I'm from Atlanta. I'm from Georgia. And so on September the 22nd, 1906, there was a turmoil in the community. There were roving white mobs going door to door, lynching black folks. Because the Atlanta Journal and the Constitution were running false stories about roving black men raping white women. And so he and his father and his mother and his sisters and brothers were hiding in their home on Houston Street, right downtown Atlanta. Now, you may never have heard of Houston Street because it's called John Wesley Dobbs right now. But that's where they were, in the heart of the black community. And this 13-year-old was standing next to the front door with a shotgun, standing next to his father. And he would go on to say that this day marked the rest of his life because he remembered this day. That man was the executive secretary of the NAACP, a man by the name of Walter White, who would go across the South chronicling lynchings. But it was because of that experience in Atlanta, Georgia, that charted the course of Walter White to become one of the most preeminent leaders of the NAACP. But then again, it wouldn't be Clark Atlanta University if we didn't mention two other legends of the association. You've mentioned both of them. One would have been our founder, W.E.B. Du Bois, and the other would have been the executive secretary that came before Walter White, which would be, of course, the author of the Black National Anthem, James Weldon Johnson. So again, it's fitting that we are here today on this 100th anniversary of Black History Month, when we can talk about black future. Because I don't ever go a place without reminding you that your ancestors are watching you. You know, those ancestors who it was illegal for them to learn to read, those ancestors who toiled in cotton fields all across the South, those ancestors, many of which chose the sea over captivity. They are watching you. They are expecting you to understand something. You know, I like to talk about dates, and I like to ground ourselves in history. One date in particular, December the 1st, 1955, because I think that's fitting of where we are right now. December the 1st, 1955, there was a young seamstress on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. She was the secretary of the Montgomery NAACP. She had seen a Jet magazine with the brutal, decaying, horrific face of one Emmett Till. And she remembered a 16-year-old who a few months earlier had been arrested on a Montgomery bus by the name of Claudette Colvin, who now is an ancestor. And that young seamstress was not tired from work. She was tired of the oppression. And she decided to take a seat and not get up. Her name was Rosa Parks. Why am I telling you these stories? I'm telling you these stories because today is your December the 1st, 1955 moment. Let's be clear. Black history is under direct attack. Diversity, equity, inclusion, also known as affirmative action, is under direct attack. Your very existence is under direct attack. And you have to ask yourselves, as we reflect on the legends of the past, what are you going to do? Well, I decided to be like a young lawyer on December the 5th, 1955, who a few days earlier had met with two other leaders, one by the name of Joanne Robinson, the other by the name of E.D. Nixon. And inside of Joanne Robinson's kitchen, they decided to launch the most successful organization that this nation has ever seen, the Montgomery Improvement Association. And there was a young lawyer by the name of Fred Gray. If you don't know who Fred Gray is, Google him. He, along with E.D. Nixon and Joanne Robinson, would call for a meeting. And the meeting would be at a church. And at that church, they would elect a pastor, a young man from Atlanta, Georgia. I believe he went to the college across the way there, by the name of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. And they would launch the most successful boycott this country's ever seen. Now, again, why am I reminding you of this? Because it's our time. It's our goal. And this is for our children. Because any successful civil rights leader will remind you this is not about us. It's about them. You know, I got a chance as I was growing up to meet John Lewis and to be his mentee, and also C.T. Vivian. And I asked him the most important question you can ask somebody. Why did y'all do all of that? Why did you go through what happened on the Edmund Pettus Bridge? Why did you get beat by Bull Connor? And you know what both of them said? They said, for you. That took me back because they didn't know me at the time. I wasn't even born. It would be another 12 to 13 years before I would even be born. But they saw me. The message that I'm bringing to you is I see you. So when certain powers in Washington want to erase Jackie Robinson's military service, want to carve out exceptions to the 1965 and 1964 Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act, want to gut Section 2, I see you. But I also see my ancestor, Thurgood Marshall, Johnny Cochran, Fred Gray, Benjamin Lloyd Crump. And I think about how we can empower you to get to that next level. And so they wanted me to give the charge. I gave you some history. Now I'm going to give you the charge. Be your ancestors. Don't talk about it. Don't tweet about it. Don't Instagram about it. Be outside. Now, what does outside mean? For me, outside means outside. But it also means be in those courtrooms, fighting for protesters, fighting for voting rights, fighting for reproductive rights, fighting for the fact that we would teach accurate history. But it also means be at that state capitol, be down at the Gold Dome, be at the Capitol in Washington, making sure they don't erase what our ancestors have codified for us. Be outside means be in the classroom. Learn. The best thing my father, a Morehouse graduate, told me was, son, I don't care what type of grades you get. Now, my mother, who graduated from Spelman, said I do, but I digress. He said, I want to make sure you learn how to apply what you are learning. Because once you can apply it, you can make it real. I want y'all to learn so you can apply. Because the next 50 years of American history will be written by the people in this room. I'm going to say that again. The next 50 years of American history will be written by the people in this room. Because black history is American history.